Full 200%, yo. So this shit goes live on Tuesday. Hey, Wilsuma. I'm doing good. How good, you might ask? This good. Had to. And had to. Alright, so. Dungeon and Raids Rebalance full patch notes. Margarita. 2 pictures of Margarita. Hi, Stevis. And you know I'm 40, you goddamn fucker. Okay. I talking. So, they dropped the news tonight that the Rebalance goes live on Tuesday, September 29th. And we're gonna look at the full patch notes. Patron. The loot key system has been reworked. Dungeon scenarios and lairs no longer require keys to obtain loot. No more keys. When completing a dungeon scenario after killing a lair boss, a patron's chest will appear near the standard loot chest. So completing a dungeon, not every chest, scenario, or killing a lair boss. One of each type of patron's chests can be opened per day by patrons. The patron chests award 1 guaranteed special distillate, energized or purified. Those are new types. They didn't exist before. They do now. Anima shards, and varying useful items like distillate shifters or catalysts, exclusive cosmetics, or even 3 new agents. Now, if you don't know what distillate shifters are, distillate shifters is a thing you can activate that says, like, if you use, say, a weapon distillate shifter, the next, like, 10 distillates you loot will be guaranteed weapon, right? So let's say you're trying to level a weapon and you're like, ah, shit, I keep doing dungeons and I get random talisman shit when all I need is weapon. You could get a distillate shifter for weapon, activate it, and the next 10 distillates you get will be converted to weapon. It's super cool. UI. Fix an issue where the combat log is reporting damage or healing is coming from the wrong ability. This was fairly commonly seen with Signum Crudolite and Unvalescence, but happened with a large number of abilities and effects. Yeah, that was an issue. I do remember that was an issue. Dungeons. You can now queue up to Elite 17 for dungeons. Queues have been merged into these ranges: Elite 1 to 2, Elite 3 to 4, Elite 5 to 7, Elite 8 to 10, 11 to 13, 14 to 16, and 17. So, to be clear, what we have now is 10 queues going E1 to E10. Replacing that, we actually have less queues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 queues. So 3 less queues. But 7 more levels technically of difficulty. Now how this works, and it does explain this down here a little bit, but the difficulty level is the lower number and the loot is the higher number. So when you go queue for Elite 3 to 4, it's not like you're randomly going to get Elite 3 or 4. Or in 5 to 7, you're not going to randomly get 5, 6, or 7. It's always going to be this difficulty, but it's going to give you this loot. Loot awarded in dungeons is awarded for the highest elite in the range. That's what I just talked about. I.e. an Elite 8 to 10 queue will reward 4k to 4.2k XP distillates. Agent dossiers drop criteria now requires completing a dungeon in your highest unlocked range instead of within 3 elite levels. third tier, aka Nightmare Mechanics, now start in the Elite 8 to 10 tier. So Nightmare Mechanics are going to start here. Additional mechanics have been added starting in Elite 14 to 16 tier. New achievements have been added for the Elite 17 tier. New achievements! Yes! What feels bad, man? Are you talking about the dossiers? Because I could give a shit. I assume that's what you're talking about, Sept is. What added line below? Dude, Twitch has a delay. You're going to need to give me more context. Should put on. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm gonna put on some like electronic music or something. Hold on. So additional mechanics been added in 1416. New achievement. Added rebalance loot tables. Additional loot drops completing a dungeon at your highest unlock range. I don't know why that's a problem. So for doing it, like it's if you can do E11 and like you'll get rewarded more for doing E11 than E10. Why do you have a problem with that exactly? I mean, also that's just a function of how the game currently works in like Dark Agartha, for example, right? Dark Agartha rewards you more for being at your highest tier. It's just all over the place. Makes me kind of focused on my tier only. Well, A, that's what you do now anyways. But B, the tier isn't a single tier except for 17. Which probably won't stay that way, right? I would imagine that eventually E17 will become its own tier. I never went tier lower than E17. True, but the different step that you're forgetting, I think, is you're not going to have a limit. So, let's say someone wanted help in like 14 to 16 or something, right? Who cares? It doesn't cost you keys. It costs you some time, sure. And you might not get like your extra loot, but you're also not spending a key. You're only spending time, right? So I don't think it's necessarily as impactful. And even that's only impactful. Time will be a limit. Even that is only as impactful because you're at E17. So if you're not at E17, you have a range of people to play with, right? It's only at E17 where you're like, ah, fuck, it's everyone in just this range. But I don't think that'll stay that way. Like, I don't believe it's a system that will just never change again. I would imagine as we get things like Mark IV weapons and stuff, like, I will imagine that eventually it won't be E17, it'll be E17 to 18, right? Or E17 to 20. So I would imagine it will become a range, if that makes sense. Where you'll end up running with people of a varying degree of power. Fuck, dude, even on E17 you're gonna run with people with a varying degree of power right now. There's a big difference between being E17 and max E17. Anyways, moving on. Additional loot drops when completing a dungeon at your highest unlock range. Keys no longer required to open dungeon loot boxes. XP awarded for killing enemies scale with the elite level. That is cool. I didn't know that was going to be a thing. So, like, to earn AP SP, right? Like, you'll get more at higher elite levels. That's actually really cool. Non-combat pets can now accompany you in dungeon and raids. This was controversial on the... It was in one of the open betas. I don't know how people noticed it in the open beta. It was controversial in the closed beta, but even the people that were like most opposed to it, we went and purposely tested it like as jacked up as possible. Biggest, flashiest pets, all 5 people summoning whatever the hell they could to be annoying as shit, like intentionally so, to really like put the screws to it. And to be perfectly honest, while some people were like, well, I still don't like the idea, pretty much everyone at the end of the dungeon was like, when we were fighting, I didn't really notice. The only person that noticed anything was one of the people that summoned the pet. It was their pet that they noticed. Like, they had the what is it called? The little drogling. The hell's it called? The albino. I'm blinking. The little dudes that float up in the air. The little like, is drogling the right word? I want to look now.
Your voice, it echoes in my mind.
No, that doesn't work. Anyways, point is, it's one of the biggest fucking pets. It's super tall, and it floats up and down. And so, like, no one else noticed it in combat, but because it was their pet, it was like stuck to them. It got in their way visually. But the Drog Puppy, yes, but it was like the albino one. It's one of the largest pets. Like, that thing is fucking huge. So the only person it annoyed was the person whose pet it was, in which case you can just unsummon it. It's yours. So I call that a win. Like, literally no one else noticed it. No one else noticed their own. Everyone else with shiny, floating, sparkly pets didn't notice even their own in combat. So I feel like while this has the potential to be annoying, in theory, in practice, it really didn't seem to make any difference. Like, once you were fighting, I don't know, just didn't see it. And it's not that it's not there, you just sort of tune it out. Corrected several cases where debilitated either provided too much or too little benefit. This was an enemy-specific occurrence. That's interesting. Adjusted damage of life burn globally. This will no longer one-shot when it reaches 2 stacks. Damage scales on an exponential curve. Letting it reach 10 stacks is still decimate. So this is nice. So it used to be, you know, it's like, say, Hell Eternal Boss 3, the Lava Golem guy. Or, no, not really him. I guess, oh no, you could get, yeah, 5 stacks for him, yeah. So like that you get a couple stacks of that and you're just toast. So now there's like, it's not insta-death. There's time for a healer to heal you. Alright, now we're gonna get into the dungeons. Polaris. Barbarian Sorceress, Death Squall. FX has been updated, should be less laggy on elites. Now has a preview FX, that's cool. You can see where it's gonna land. Should no longer desync the cloud in the damage area. That's awesome. Damage now properly scales with dungeon elite level. Dev commentary. Don't stand in lightning clouds, okay? It's probably a bad idea. Yeah, I think that means it probably hits harder. The Varangian, electrified, can now be evaded. That's cool. And no longer scales with the player's maximum health. Oh, okay, so you can actually get hit by it more, I would imagine, then. Urdrog's strength from beyond blue phase buff. Retaliatory damage now ignores line of sight and will retaliate against all non-damage over time damage sources, including ground effects. So if you have a dot on him, it won't kill you, but if you place like a Manny down, you're probably still gonna die. I think is what that means. Retaliatory damage has been increased. So basically, no more bursting him in blue phase. Like, you have to play the dungeon like it's designed. Damage done scales up over the first 5 seconds to make ground effects like bombardment and crystallized storm less problematic. Oh, it means the retaliatory damage. So if you've dropped a manifestation on the ground, a ground effect, and it's still going, it won't initially one-shot you, right? It's got time to go away. Now considered a dungeon reflex shield. Volatile hosts are now considered zombies. Oh, the exploding guys are now zombies. That's cool. Darkness War. Zvalin Bloodhound. Concussed. Renamed to Gaze of the Void to avoid confusion with the final boss's mechanic. Damage changed to physical. Protection now reduces it. No longer knocks if the attack is glanced or evaded. That's interesting. Made changes to reduce the chance of getting invisible filth. This does not 100% resolve the problem, but makes it less likely to happen. That'll be cool to test. Dark House Sorcerer. Fixing a shield would cause the boss to target DPS instead of the tank. This is like a long time coming. Thank God, like, hopefully no more random deaths there. Unbound Cobb. Dash now inflicts damage even when the boss is not in space to move. This is a fix to the fact that we could just hide behind one of the little bumps where he spawns and then just tank him there without ever moving him. Knock on Warcaller, Trash Mob. Fevered Blow now has an avoidable decal. This is really nice. So like normally you just randomly die to that, but at least you can move out of the way. Hound of Nameless Days. Concussed can no longer be avoided by using line of sight. No more hiding behind the rock. It's not going to do anything. He's now immune to taunts while casting Concuss, so don't even try to taunt him. When taunted after Concuss is finished casting, his current action is now interrupted. This enables him to rapidly change targets even if he's already started his attack swing, so we can stop losing DPS after Concuss. What does now considered a dungeon reflect shield mean exactly? Wow, is this stream that far behind? Oh, here. I think that means just like under the hood, it's considered a reflex shield, which means it should share all properties of a reflex shield. Like, for example, Machine Tyrant at the end of Hell Raised, right? Has that big gold bubble. Everyone knows it's a reflex shield. Don't fucking shoot it, or it's going to reflect damage on you. So the Urdrog's blue phase buff is essentially the exact same thing now. It was coded differently before, and you could do damage to it in the blue phase and get away with it. You could get around it, and that's no longer the case. Alright, so back to Darkness War. Let's see. Increase the time before he resumes combat after casting Concuss. So this in addition to this means, so after he casts Concuss, he won't just immediately like swing at somebody, right? There's like a gap. So the tank should be able, as soon as the Concuss cast is finished, grab him. Like you've got presumably a second or two more to taunt him. Fix the case where it's possible for players to become hostile to each other. I don't know that anyone ever actually did this, but yeah, they're apparently Dark Souls Boss 6 had a PvP moment. And they fixed the geometry exploit, so no more jumping off the edge on the little rock and getting out of combat and switching your gear, jumping back up. It's not gonna work anymore. It'll just kill you. Hellraise, Hardwire Flesh Tank. He has had enough of your positioning shenanigans. Prepare to be burned. So this is boss 2, I believe. Hey, Manga. So boss 2 in Hellraised was like the ultimate tank and spank, and now, having playtested this, it is not. Now he requires a lot of movement. Like he after his green donut, he drops AoE like immediately, like toxic sludge pull at his feet. So you have to like run away, and the tank has to move him. He can end up cleaving people. Like it's a whole thing. All right, Trauma Driver, this is boss 4. Molten Metal now has a preview. This is awesome. I always you either do two things. You would always play Molten Metal as everyone stacks together and pops a bunch of protection buffs to survive Molten Metal and just stay on the boss, or people stay out of range. But especially if you're melee, like you don't always know exactly how far to get away, right? You just kind of run far away and then come back. Well, now molten metal has like a chalk line, like a circle, so you can see exactly how far you need to be to not be burned alive, which is really, really cool. Recursive reflex shield area is now tagged as a dungeon reflex shield. So again, they're just making things more consistent across the board. So everything works the same way. So the gold area that she drops, right? It's now tagged as a reflex shield, and so all the same properties should apply, which means, for one, dots shouldn't kill you. Because they've made it so dungeon reflex shields, like an actual damage over time that you can't control, will not kill you. So that's the main purpose of stuff like this, is what's the word? Consistency. Trigger things now have new passive effect sole purpose. Trigger things are the Rakasha that like try and reach her. When they reach her, they explode. The creature's sole purpose is to be consumed. Failure to fulfill that purpose is death. When stunned, rooted, or knocked, this creature will die. Dev commentary. Recursive difficulty was far too high compared to the penultimate bosses in other dungeons. There has long been a bug where interrupting a Trigger Thing's cast would kill the Trigger Thing, and while this was never an intended mechanic, it was interesting gameplay. This change aims to bring recursive difficulty in line while expanding on the aforementioned emergent gameplay. This is particularly amazing in the sense that something we've been doing since I think TSW, for sure since the beginning of SWL. Something we've been doing forever that wasn't intended is now like the mechanic. It used to be you would wait for it to get to her, and when it's casting its explosion cast, you interrupt its explosion cast, and it would just vanish. Didn't matter how much health it had left. It tried to blow up, you stopped it from blowing up, and then it would just disappear. And so they observed this when we were beta testing, and we're like, yeah, this is how we do it, like, for forever. It's always been like a way to, like, a last-ditch effort to, like, stop them, and they would just go away. And apparently the difficulty was too high, and this was an interesting way. So now you don't have to wait for them to cast. You can literally just run around stunning, rooting, or knocking those guys at any point before they reach her, and they'll vanish. I expect everyone to just slot like Mistress Bashojin and like mass impair those guys as they come towards her. I highly look forward to that. I think that'll be interesting. Machine Tyrant. Increased enrage timer to 6 minutes. Anima Vortex proximity damage reduced. So what this means, it's the wells. It's the Anima wells. It used to be like they could randomly spawn. Like if they spawned under your feet, you basically died. Like you just happened to be standing where one spawned and you were insta-dead. So you have a chance to like survive that and move the hell out the way, which I think is a very important change. Anima Overcharge, the reflex shield, will no longer reflect damage over time, or dots. This is also really nice because you can't control those. Zionk! Dr. Klein, Dreaming Shroud. Now does physical damage so that percent damage... Physical damage so that percent reduced damage taken, protection, reducing incoming damage. So they changed the output type of Dreaming Shroud so that its damage can be reduced by a tank like normal. Damage has been adjusted so that this still remains a healer check, but provides a little more room to tanks to assist in mitigating incoming damage. So what this means is essentially the Shroud probably technically does more damage now, but the tank can actually mitigate it, whereas they couldn't before. I think technically it was filth damage before, which basically you can't do shit against. So now it's normal physical damage, but more of it. But since it's physical damage, as a tank, your stats help protect you from it, and then the healer can heal you. Metal Tat, the Colossus on the bridge. Gate HP now scales with elite level, and the gates can now be affected by debuffs such as dots. This is actually really nice. For one, it means the gates at higher levels aren't just like pushovers; they're part of the intended fight mechanic. But for two, it's really annoying that like if your damage is heavily reliant on dots, you were basically useless on the gates, and now you can take down gates. Fixed race assignments for the Colossus Meltat, the Defiled, Research Assistant, Wretched Receptacle, and Dr. Klein. This change makes them take increased damage from agents that target specific types of enemies, i.e. filth or mummies. Basically, these guys all had like jacked up race assignments or no race assignments, so like your agents weren't working on them. So that's actually been fixed now. Fixed the number of geometry exploits. You know, I wonder which ones they fixed. That I want to check out. I didn't realize they fixed any there. Fixed an incorrectly placed collision barrier at the first animal well. Okay. There has always been something weird about the first animal well, but I can't recall exactly what it was. Added some missing death zones. Oh, I bet they fixed some of the filth that you could swim through that didn't hurt you. And the filth is more dangerous. Yep. Yep. That's going to be interesting. That'd be fun to check out. Hell Eternal. Fix being able to access an out-of-bounds area. So this is, I believe, specifically the run-in hot, like the making your way from boss 3 to boss 4. There was like where you're supposed to sneak through the area. There was this part where you could like jump inside one of the walls and like hide there, and then people would just go away. That was never intended. It's been there since TSW. Never intended to be a thing. So you can't do that now. Flipping Lens, now tagged as a dungeon reflex shield. Now lasts 15 seconds and has a longer recast timer. I think this affects multiple bosses actually. Multiple bosses in Hell Eternal cast a Flipping Lens. So and it should act consistently. I think it actually lasts not as long. I think this is less time, but I'm not positive. But it has a longer recast. They won't recast it immediately. Arcane Seismocrat no longer randomly drops threat when he pulls the tank. Okay. Interesting. Prime Maker. The Prime Maker will no longer momentarily inflict damage when getting its shield back when standing in a pool of water. This was a big problem. If as a tank you took him to the pool of water like too soon, he's standing in it, you had to like jiggle him around to get his shield to come back off sometimes. Fix being stuck in combat after completing the Prime Maker encounter. That's awesome. Reduction. No longer be immediately recast when successfully interrupted. That's nice, because that was super annoying. Note that reduction is no longer interruptible at all on Elite 14 or higher. So you just have to deal with it. Draw heat. Fix the problem where this did damage at locations it was not supposed to. Added preview lines to indicate where the damage will hit. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that one. I like preview lines. The Penthouse! The Penthouse mini dungeon has returned! A fan favorite back in TSW has been updated for SWL. Aegis has been torn out and mechanics have been updated. This dungeon is accessed via the Group Finder dungeon cube just like the other dungeons. Due to its higher base difficulty, it has the following parameters. Can only be rolled on Elite 11 or higher. Gains Nightmare mechanics at Elite 17. Because the Penthouse is a whole different level of difficulty. In fact... Hey, Kalani. In fact, it's the... You needed a nap anyways. God damn it, Kalani. In fact, Penthouse mechanics are so difficult, it's one of the main reasons that the dungeons got like a new level of mechanics. Because the normal dungeon just scaled to E17 is not nearly as complicated as the Penthouse. Penthouse nightmare mechanics are like a whole nother level of complexity. So the other dungeons at E17 just kind of paled in comparison. So they added new mechanics to all the dungeons at E7, or no, I think it starts at E, what did it say? E14. At E14, I believe the additional mechanics have been added. So that when you're running those, like when you get Penthouse, it doesn't feel so weird. Hello, wonderful bees and Jimmy. God damn it, Claney. Now you're making me drink. You're making me drink. Okay. I needed that. Manhattan Exclusion Zone. The unhonorable lurker is now the race Filth, which means Filth agents will work against him. The way that targeting works for the unhonorable lurker has been changed. This should make it much easier to target ads near the lurker. This we experienced during testing, and it's so much better now. What's with this 2.0 though? What do you mean? I'm reading the patch notes for it right now. I'm calling it that. I think even their... Hold on. Let me look up something. Hold on. I'll tell you why. Hold on. First of all, I can call whatever the hell I want. That's my prerogative. Secondly, even the Secret World Legends tweet says, one of the biggest updates for Secret Legends is coming soon. Featuring massive updates, blah, blah, blah. And then the other post says... Hold on. There's nearly 9,000 words of changes. So you might be reading for a little while. It's literally the biggest update. What are you talking about? I didn't say anything about not missing it. Anyways, my point is, it's literally the biggest update for SWL.
You know, we've been talking.
God damn it, YouTube. Goddamn McLean. That doesn't mean that I don't want you here. That just means I said goddamn McLean. Stop inferring things, goddamn it, Clanny. It's not gonna be your new name. So anyways, I'm referring to it as 2.0. Because it's just a fuck ton of changes. It changes the game on a fundamental level. And I really think it will change the gameplay on a fundamental level. And potentially the player base. Or actually, I think it will change the player base on a fundamental level. So, that's what I'm calling it. Whatever. Where was I? Debilitated now reduces the damage done by Whisper of Darkness. That's actually cool. That's good for tanks. Alright, this is an interesting one. Guardian and Titan spawn order now resets between encounter attempts. For those of you that raid, every time you wipe on, like currently in the raid, depending on how many Guardians or Titans have spawned, their position changes. And like, so if you wipe after one has come up, then when you start the fight again, everyone revives, you go down and start the whole fight over. The spawn order rotates counterclockwise. So it can drastically affect, depending how many times you wipe, it can affect where things are coming from. It can vary from attempt to attempt, which is really odd that you would die, reset a fight, but it doesn't actually reset correctly, and things are now appearing in different places than they were before. So now that doesn't happen anymore. Now if you die, everything fully resets and everything will spawn in the same places. I think this is awesome and a long time coming. This one's cool too. Will no longer kill tanks during the last Final Resort cast if Whisper of Darkness runs out at that time. So this is one of those things where just because of the nature of when Final Resort happens at the end, and tanks are always swapping stacks, you invariably or inevitably lose a tank at the end of the run. When you win, one tank is almost always dead. Because they were at low stacks when Final Resort's cast, and then once that's cast, you can't swap, and they just die. Okay. The raid E10 Plus moves Rose's combat point a little closer to the boss so that melee players can reliably reach the boss while standing with her, which means that what has previously been the mid-range circle can, like, melee players can also, like, with, you know, hammer or sword, can actually reach the boss from there. Fix the full screen effects not properly playing when casting Shadow at a time. Filth waves now spawn further back. Standing with Alex is no longer a death wish. So they've adjusted. It kind of looks weird in practice, but it is practical. So when the fist comes down in E10 and E17, like, it shoots out a filth wave, right? Currently in E10 on live, it shoots a filth wave out right from the end of the fist. But they intend you to actually use the long range circle, which pretty much no one uses, at least in E10. And one of the reasons is if you're standing there and a fist comes down, the fist wave will shoot out and get you. So now the fist wave actually starts further back. So it's like the fist comes down and then the wave comes out, like, shoots up out from the ground over here. So it's like this DMZ zone in between the end of the fist and just past Alex's buff circle that you're safe from filth waves in. The Titan spawn points have been adjusted, which they spawn in slightly different areas in E10 Plus. So the spawn points will remain consistent if you wipe, but they spawn in different spots. Whisper of Darkness. On E10 now deals damage on a 1 second interval, total damage unchanged. On E17 deals damage on a 1.5 second interval. From beneath you, it devours now centers its splash radius on its victim. So this is, I believe this is the pod, like, so there's been lots of issues with chain podding. The pods come up, like, someone gets potted, and then you're like way, you're like way the hell over here, and it's been like 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden, like, whoop, you're potted as well for no obvious reason. This is a fix to that. So they changed the way it's potting, like chain potting logic works to prevent the bullshit stuff that's been happening forever. Awesome change. Seek and preserve scenarios. So do are now available up to Elite 17. Reduce the number of survivors that need to be kept alive to 5 for Elite 5+ scenarios. Loot obtained at the end of the scenario now scales based on how many survivors you kept alive, and the loot table was rebalanced. Keys are no longer required to open loot boxes. The interact prompt now properly appears when doing possession event. That's nice. Achievements now increment and award when completing a scenario at a higher tier, no longer only at the exact tier. That's fucking awesome! That is awesome! Holy shit. I wish that was in, like, 3 years ago. You guys grasp what that means? Like, you normally, back in the day, you would, like, you probably weren't focused on achievements when you're first leveling through scenarios. Then you'd get to, like, I don't know, like E8 scenarios or something. You start doing achievements and realize, fuck, I have like E1 achievements to do and E5 achievements to do. You have to go back to those ones and waste a bunch of time doing shitty low level scenarios for like no loot and doing enough runs like just to get the achievement for that E level. Now they'll increment. So you can just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna do E10, and if I get the achievement, it basically like awards the prior ones, is what it sounds like. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. Cult defense scenario. XP award for killing enemies now scales with the current wave. Rebalance through table. Keys no longer required to open loot boxes. Power up. Enthused now provides 10% critical chance and actually gives that chance. I guess that was broken. Waves 31 and 33 are now available as start points in the group finder. That's nice. Enemy stat templates completely rebalanced. Due to this change and the now higher reachable maximum wave, the highest wave leaderboards have been reset. Oh shit! New leaderboard. Scaling missions, faction, and seasonal. XP awarded for killing enemies now scales to elite level. Rebalance loot table. Awesome. Layers. Layer boss, regional layer boss, and layer mega boss loot boxes now use standardized distillates. This provides an increase in average Signet XP gain. Rebalance loot tables. Keys no longer required to open. Monsters. Hey, Rama, how's it going? Rama, the rebalance patch for SWL drops Tuesday. Everything changes on Tuesday, the 29th. Four days. Four days. Cheers. Cheers, Rama. All Elite 1 Plus monsters have had a stat pass to rebalance them in accordance with the rest of the changes made in this update. Nice. Randomly targeted abilities will not target pets. Some abilities have been updated so that even if a pet is tanking, they will still target the player. This is because the Ellie now has a ability that basically summons a flame pet. Like an actual flame pet that attacks for you and tanks for you. Dark Agartha, Savanovic. Blood Font is now limited to healing once per second. Yeah, this guy could, like, especially in the higher levels, that ability would just, he would just super mega heal. This is broken. Revenant. Misdirect now has a 2-second cast time and a 35-second recast. This is actually really nice. Because that cast was so fucking fast to impair. And then he would recast it pretty frequently. That's really nice. Werewolf Alpha. Overrun should no longer turn at the end of the cast. That's also nice. Jin. Searing Flash no longer turn at the end of the cast. Yeah, both these casts had like columns that would occasionally just bend. Like they're fucking wanted. Just like fucking bending bullets in midair. Like you can't bend a column cast, you fuckers. I mean they could, they shouldn't have been. Crafting and item XP. Content using standardized distillates, dungeons, scaling missions, scenarios, layers can now drop distillates larger than 4k XP. Whoop. Added energized distillates. Added 3 types of empowerment catalysts. These drop from in-game content and can be traded on the marketplace. Bound versions can be purchased with Aurum. Added distillate shifters. These can be purchased with Aurum. When empowering an item, credit is given for the daily challenges for each non-catalyst item used in the empowerment. This means that when you put 5 distillates in a single empowerment, you get challenge credit for empowering 5 times. This is fucking awesome. Do you know how many times, like every day for like 3 years probably, that I put like 1 distillate in, empower, 1 empower, 1 empower, 1 empower to get the daily challenge? And then you get a critical and you're like, fuck, I wasted a critical on a single distillate. When if you crit, you want to crit on like a 5 distillate row, right? This is awesome. Love this. Hey Zoom. Itemization. Recovering glyphs and signets cost 4k moth for a red item. The price scales down for lower quality items. This change is already live, but included here for completeness. Yeah, this change accidentally went live. But this is awesome. I'm gonna do Overwatch when I'm done with talking about the patch notes, Zoom, because patch goes live Tuesday. As for Margarita, okay, I got the new machine and I kept the old, actual blender from the old one. So now I can have 2 at the same time. Yes, this is actually really good. You can recover glyphs and signets for only 4k moth on a max item. It'll be much cheaper on lower items. Double fisted. Krampus rockets. Fixed an issue that could eject players from the map. Alright, so this is a big deal. I need to do a stream. I'm thinking probably Sunday night and maybe Monday night. I'm going to do at least 1 stream, maybe 2, where I just burn through like the 1,000 Krampus rockets I have and launch myself into space all over the game before it's not possible anymore. Because as of Tuesday, it won't be possible. But we'll do a stream where I just like rocket like all over the goddamn place before it doesn't work anymore. I don't know if the group leaving sound is fixed, but yes, this is the beta. There was 3 open betas. I've been closed beta testing it since May. It's a massive patch. Patch notes are 9,000 words plus zoom, and I'm on like page 1 of 3. Your tumblers came in today. Nice, Cleaning. All right, let's see. Talisman Lycanthropic Essence now restores % missing health. Mark Star Spawn now restores % missing health. Pigment from Beyond triggers when you're hit 5 times in a row or evade 2 times in a row. Star Spawn triggers when you're hit 5 times in a row or evade 2 times. So they've changed these to be, I think, more tanking. Like, these are now specifically more tanking. Tachyon Pigment triggers when you're hit 5 times in a row, evade 2 times in a row, or hit the same target 3 times in a row. Black Sash redesign now increases global threat generation by 20% for 5 seconds when you hit an enemy who's facing you. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds against the same target. They massively changed how like tanking and threat generation works, so this is nice that they redesigned this talisman. Soon, tell me till early 10s. Serum Pouch. Hate decrease improved to -30%. Duration increased to 5 seconds. Additionally, if you take damage while the hate decrease effect is active, you are healed and the hate decrease effect is removed. Can occur once every 5 seconds. Wow, that's interesting. Weapon Affix. Restoration. Healing amount is now capped at 150, 300, and 450 health. Warding. Protection increased. 525, 1050, 15. Those are big protection values. Holy shit. Destruction Affix. Damage increased to about 235%. So as far as I know from speaking with Mala, the destruction affix on a weapon is probably now going to be best in slot. Like, period, apparently. Signet of Thorns now triggers when you activate a signature ability. These are new signature abilities, are new tank abilities. So this is basically a tanking signet now. No longer has a 15-second cooldown, so it's just triggered when you activate the signature ability. Damage dealt adjusted, now scales will play faster with health. Will deal retaliatory damage when you are glanced and when you evade the attack. So yeah, the Signet of Thorns is now a tank signet. New signet. So this is a brand new signet. Signet Vitalization Luck Slot. When you activate signature ability, gain temporary health for 5 seconds. This is another tank signet. New signet, Signet Resilience, Luck Slot. When you activate signature ability, gain protection for 3 seconds. Okay, another new tank signet. Signet of Thirst, it's healing from Rebalance. Signet of Light, healing. So Cruel Light will not be as OP as it was before. You're actually going to need some other form of healing. Cruel Light was pretty crazy. Mnemonic Doppelganger! That's like your mini copy from the museum. No longer deals damage to enemies protected by a dungeon reflex shield. Yeah, so like he won't fucking kill you. Gadget, True Ansel of the Solly, range increase 25 meters. Animate Jet, range increase 25 meters, healing not rebalanced. The Osmium configuration, cooldown increase 50 seconds. So this is because they don't want you to be able to just spam shit and like not need a healer. Same thing with Compact Catastrophe Shelter, because that provides protection, and you don't want to... The whole point, well, one of the main points of the rebalance is tanking and healing. And so if a tank can just, or other people can spam tank gadgets for effects too often, like you lose the need for healing. So like a lot of these tank gadgets have increased to 50 seconds, as you can see. All of these ones, Jotun, Mnemonic Guardian, Purification Susceptibility. The Purification drone model will now jump to targets with life burn. This was really weird. It would cleanse, that drone is a cleansing drone, and it would jump to other targets, but with life burn, it just wouldn't for whatever reason. So now it works appropriately. That's awesome. Oh, guys, this used to be in TSW. It's now coming back to SWL. Utility, Mark of the Dragon, Illuminati, Templar. Very similar, Mark of Chaos, Mark of the Eye, Mark of Blood. So these are the faction-bound ones, and these are the non-faction ones. Like, just like anyone can have these, and these are like you can only have the one for your faction. Can now be purchased from faction quartermasters in Agartha or Kaiden after reaching faction rank 13. Marks belonging to another faction cannot be purchased. Items are stored in the mission inventory. Yes. These ones can only be purchased from Dr. Caligari and Agartha after reaching 3,000 achievement points. These items are in the mission inventory. So, like, but you can get the one for your faction, like I'm Dragon, but then I could get Mark of the Eye and Mark of the Blood. And if you don't know what it does, for whatever reason, it's new to you, it lets you mark an enemy with either the Dragon symbol, Lumi symbol, or Templar symbol. It's really fucking helpful in the penthouse dungeon, for example, because the first fight you fight the 3 bunnies, and they look almost identical. So you can actually mark them, like, you know, mark one with the Dragon symbol, one with the Lumi symbol, one with the Templar, and they'll have a little symbol floating above their head. And then you go like, hey, I'm fighting the Dragon bunny, you fight the Lumi bunny, you fight the Templar bunny. And then as they're dashing around the fucking, you know, dungeon area, you can keep track of which one you're supposed to be attacking. And also, it just lets you mark things, like, it's almost like pinging things in game, right? You can, like, mark, like, hey, kill this guy first. You know, things that have a kill order, like Hell Eternal Boss 5 with the, we usually do BIC, B-I-C. You could actually mark them and say, kill them in this order with the marks. This was really cool. I'm glad they brought these back. These are awesome. Weapon set, Frostbound, rebalanced. Now do 1.875 CP and reduced damage taken by 4%. So this is a tanking thing, I believe. Dev commentary. Unfortunately, the original balancing made this set of weapons too strong for a tank. As such, these now deal more damage when they proc and prevent less damage while the buff is active. So the Frostbound weapons were essentially tanking weapons from that cache, but they're just too strong. So they kind of had to adjust them for the tanking rebalance. Weapon set Anima Touched. To bring these weapons in line with the new self-healing slowing expectations, the amount of healing is now 35% of the damage dealt. I think this, if I'm not mistaken, this brings them down. Hey, Dark Hearts! Yep, September 29th. September 29th, this shit goes live. That is a very short time away. Roll, Healer, Assault Rifle, Blood Magic Fist. Rebalance value of heal power. Rebalance healing anima allocation to better match a healer's healing output with the tank's health across elites. Rebalance coefficients across all heal abilities. This is really interesting. Characters who have 51% or higher healing anima allocation have 30 Assault Rifle, Fist, and Blood Max energy. Now what this means is, when you allocate to healer, right, as long as you allocate past 50%, instead of having 15 energy for your weapon, you get 30 energy for your weapon. But single target power heal abilities now cost 6 energy, and group heal abilities now cost 10 energy. So you've got more energy, but things also cost a little bit more. This was done to shift healers to a more tactical playstyle and make power abilities and elites feel impactful while achieving the new balance level. As part of this shift, all healer basic abilities now generate a higher contribution to the weapon mechanic, Martyrdom, Grenades, Wrath, to ensure that the mechanics remain relevant for healers. Basically, that means that, like, spamming your basics is now not, like, shitty. Dark Hearts, thanks for the host. Basic healer abilities will now direct half of their heal to the healer's defensive target, and the other half will seek out the raid member with the lowest health percent, possibly the defensive target. If the defensive target is at full HP, then the full healing amount will be allocated to whoever has the lowest health percent. So your basic heal ability, you're spamming as a healer, will attempt most likely to heal the tank who you're targeting, right? That should be your default target. But half of it will heal whoever else is lowest. If the tank is lowest, it'll just put it all to the tank. But if a DPS is taking damage, it'll split half your basic between the tank and like a DPS that's busy dying. And if the tank's not dying at all, you'll spam on whatever DPS is busy killing themselves. This is really cool. To keep assault rifles gearing expectations in line with other healers, while at 51% or higher healing and allocation, assault rifles' healing abilities cannot glance and will not trigger dungeon reflex shield. So if you are an assault rifle healer, you can just blaze away at a reflex shield and not kill yourself, and you can't glance ever. You will always hit. Okay. Roll, tank, chaos magic, hammer, shotgun. Rebalance survivability and allocation. Holy crap, I can't talk. Increased amount of health gained, reduced amount of protection gained. So when you're allocated into tank, you get even more health, but slightly less protection. Anima allocation provides increased threat, scaling with survivability allocation. Removed all bonus hate generation from abilities, passives, and items. This means that Chaos Hammer and Shotgun users can now use bottom row power and basic abilities from dealing damage. This is fucking huge. So, no more do you have to use a specific ability to generate hate as a tank. Any ability you use will generate hate because your hate generation is based on your tank allocation. So if you're 100% tank, you have like a fuck ton of hate generation no matter what ability you use. Also, the really good part about this is forever since the launch of the game, you would have people that like run shotgun and like they're like, I'm gonna want to use a DPS, I want to use rocket pod. Well, rocket pod's in the bottom row and would generate hate. It's for a tank. But the DPS would use it, and then, you know, because it's a hate generating ability, the fucking boss would go over there and smack him and kill him. And then everyone dies because now everything's out of whack. The boss is running around smacking DPS, and you can't recover from that. Everyone wipes. And then they get mad at the person using the ability that doesn't know any better because they don't know how the game works. So this is awesome. It prevents that madness from happening. It also means as a DPS, you have way more options of abilities to use. Took him long enough. Sad bloody noises. Yep, healers are back, baby. Tanking orientated percent-based healing now heal a percentage of missing health instead of a maximum health. So this is to I believe this is to prevent tanks from overhealing themselves. Instead of healing off of your maximum health, you heal a percentage of your missing health, which means you heal far less. You need a healer more. Like how Blade is going to be? I'm not sure I get that, Lucima, but we'll get there. Percent-based healing effects are now affected by increased healing received. Nice, like that. Rebalance and redesign sets replaced many tank-related abilities and passives to give each tank weapon a unique flavor and focus. Tank special cooldowns like Paint Suppression now have a 60-second base cooldown. Tank elites like Immutable now have a 60-second base cooldown. Now these are long cooldowns intentionally. You need to time them, and you need to work with the healer. So like you can't. There's not going to be sustained tanking anymore. You can't tank without a healer because you just won't be able to stay alive. So you will be able to keep yourself alive with your cooldown, but you can't have cooldowns up all the time because their cooldown values are too high. So you need a healer to heal you during the interim. This is really good. Each tank weapon's middle row elite's passive was redesigned or replaced to convert the middle row elite, Anomaly, Bombardment, and Unstoppable into a tank elite. So what this means is your middle row elite without the passive is DPS elite. With the passive is a tank elite. Each tank weapon, wow, someone missed their grammar, has been gotten. I'm gonna let it slide. There's like 9,000 plus words. There had to be a mistake somewhere. Each tank weapon has been given a new ability type, a signature ability that provides moderate mitigation, area damage, and scales with the caster's tanking glyphs. This is important, by the way. This right here. We'll get to it. These abilities have a base cooldown of 30 seconds. The cooldown timer is reduced by mitigating, avoiding incoming damage, and executing the relevant weapon mechanic. i.e. reaching 8 paradoxes, enraging, well that's chaos, enraging, hammer, or reloading the shotgun. Sid Kick, thanks for the follow. These abilities share a cooldown and only one can be used at a time. What that means is, like if you go hammer chaos as a tank, you can't just put both signature abilities and think, I'm going to smash them. They share the same cooldown, right? While heavily damaged... Okay, this is key. This part right here and this part are tied together. While heavily damage anima allocated, the damage of signature abilities scales drastically and compensates for lacking critical chance and critical power glyphs in a soloing situation. Okay, the reason this is important is tanks currently on live didn't need tanking glyphs, and in fact tanking glyphs were detrimental to you because of how some of the abilities worked. You needed DPS glyphs, like tanking glyphs, you just threw them away. So now, as a tank, you need tanking glyphs, but you might think, well, okay, I need a second set of gear to tank and another set of gear to like play the game normally, right? Not true. It revolves around the signature ability. So, specifically your signature ability, which has a base cooldown of 30 seconds, but can actually be reduced to way below 30 seconds depending on, how much you mitigate or avoid incoming damage or the weapon mechanic. So, realistically, you can get that cooldown down even further and cast it pretty frequently. And when you do cast your ability, it is a giant AoE that when you are damage anima allocated with tank glyphs on, not with DPS glyphs on, but with tank glyphs on, it notices that. It's like, oh, you cast a signature ability, you're 100% damage allocated, but you have 5 tanking glyphs, and it will do a fuck ton of damage. I personally tested this multiple times. For example, I had a full tanking set and went into Dark Agartha E17 and just beat the shit out of it. What this really means is once the rebalance goes live on Tuesday, one of the things they're doing is they're giving out a free set of glyph changers. So when the patch goes live, if you're like, oh fuck, I have to make, like I'm full red, I have to make all new red glyphs for tanking if I want to tank. No. But you do need to pick a lane. You will need to decide, am I DPSing most of the time, like in dungeons or raids, or am I going to be the tank? So if you're like, well, I want to tank, like that's the role I want to do, you take those glyph converters they give you, you convert your DPS glyphs to tank glyphs, and you're done. You're a tank now. Congratulations. Right? And then when you go to do solo content, you'll be fine. You can do story content, you can do faction missions, you can do Dark Agartha, you can do Occult Defense, Secret Preserve scenarios. Any solo content, you will be more than able to solo in your tank gear. You will not need a separate set of gear to solo. This is achieved primarily by what's happening here. It's like, the only way you wouldn't is if for some reason you don't run the signature ability, but that just means you don't know how tanking works. So it did happen actually. One of the open betas, someone was trying this out and was like, I can't do any damage. What are you talking about? And they just didn't slot the signature ability. That was kind of like a oops moment. But yeah, so essentially in the new meta, Kittens, is gonna be pick a lane. Be a DPS, be a tank, or be a healer. Change your glyphs accordingly. You will be able to do any solo content as that role. Now, if you want to make a second set of gear so that you can full DPS in a dungeon or full tank in a dungeon, that's up to you. But it's not necessary to have a full set of DPS gear to go do Dark Agartha or go do faction missions or go do, any other solo content. I have played Blood Magic since last week's episode to expect to be trolled hard by Funcom. Actually, you get a blood buddy. I think we'll get to that. There's a new ability with a little blood dude. It's like a mini. What the hell are they called? Like the one in Savage Coast in the Innsmouth Academy. That you have to set on fire. Runs around. Can't remember the name right now. Anyways, moving on. All tank weapons now have access to plus 30% maximum health buffs. These do not stack. Capstone. Okay, check this out. Capstones now give 30 max health per tier, up from 15. So all those capstones you have, which is 9 per weapon, all now give double the health they used to. So your base health, when this goes live, is going to chunk up. Well, at least if you have all your capstones done. Or really any of your capstones done, it'll go up a little bit. But if you have all your capstones done, that's fucking massive. Alright, we're getting into weapons. Assault rifle, mechanic grenades. Loading grenades now uses a procs per minute system that scales with the amount of assault rifle energy spent casting power abilities. To put it another way, spending more energy on grenade generating power abilities will generate more grenades. So it's a more consistent system. The number of grenades generated per minute on average with base energy generation is 6. Grenades now take 2 seconds to cook. Once cooked, grenades have a 4-second timer before detonating in the barrel. Damage of cooked grenades has been slightly adjusted to compensate for the potential for higher frequency grenades. This change was made to improve the experience of playing with rifle with weapons other than a KSR, and to shift the cap at which additional grenades per minute, and thus energy generation, is ineffective to a much higher plateau. Basic ability, Leeching Ray, now uses a scaling heal amount instead of a percent leech. When the casting player is 51% plus healing allocation, so you're a healer with assault rifle, can also load grenades. So your basic can load grenades. It cannot glance. It will not deal damage to targets affected by dungeon reflex shields. This was necessary to allow rifle healers to continue to heal during downtime, such as while the machine tower has a shield active. Hey Schubert, yep, blade buffs incoming. Power ability, Vital Shot. When the casting player is a healer, cannot glance, will not damage targets affected by reflex shields. Healing increased by 300% when used to heal the caster. So you can heal yourself a shit ton more. That's interesting. Unveil Essence. Healing now comes from the player that cast Unveil Essence. The healing amount still scales with the damage done. The leech effect from hitting the target now only applies to your team members. When the casting player is a healer, plus 51% plus healing allocation, cannot glance, will not damage reflex shields. Elite Animus Fusion. Basic healing value is dramatically higher than team-focused healer elite, such as Regeneration. Now increases effectiveness of assault healing abilities by 35% for 4 seconds. Dev commentary. We want to give Animus Fusion a niche to excel in. Compared to other healer elites, to achieve this, we focus it on single target healing by making it by far the strongest single target healer elite. Passive Permeate redesigned. After you finish channeling Animus Fusion, your target receives 30% increased healing for 4 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, this used to just straight up prevent you from dying, and I'm not sure it does it anymore. I have to see when it's live. Special ability Anima Canister. This ability is no longer a TAOE. Now delivers a large heal to your defensive target, delivers a minor heal to your team. Passive Enlarged Canister replaced by Synergy. For 5 seconds after activating Anima Canister on an ally, whenever anyone healed by Anima Canister is healed, you also heal Anima Canister's primary target up to 5 times per second. So basically, if you're healing the DPS, you will also heal your tank. I believe is how that works. If I'm reading that right. Special ability Energize. The next assault rifle attack purges one beneficial attack while enemies hit. No longer purges on every assault rifle attack while enemies is active. Passive ground marker rounds. Replace. Okay, just real quick. Purging becomes a massive thing in E14 and up. A lot of the added mechanics to dungeons on E14 Plus deal with you having to purge stuff. So pretty much all the weapons got some change to allow them to purge. Passive ground marker rounds replaced by animastasis. When a grenade would time out, its explosives are purged and replaced with anima. Then it is stored in stasis. When you activate anima canister or essence grenades while you do not have a quick grenade ready, but you have a stasis grenade ready, you will instead fire the stasis grenade. Stasis grenades deal 7% less damage and 66% more healing. Anima canister and essence grenades prioritize consuming stasis grenades over uncooked grenades. Additionally, when you enter combat, you generate one stasis grenade. So this is like a healing change. So you can basically have a stasis healing. Basically, you can have a healing grenade in the chamber, if you will, right? Like you'll start combat with one in the chamber. So if you, it's to let assault rifle be able to sort of do a burst heal when necessary, without having to rely on just triggering random grenades. Special ability Incendiary Grenade. No longer ground targeted. Now uses your target. Say goodbye to annoying ground targeting. It now also purges one beneficial effect from hit targets. Now does non-AoE damage to the primary target and AoE damage to the secondary targets. The non-AoE damage does not scale with Signet of Domain. The AoE damage continues to scale with Signet of Domain. This change was necessary to fix a scaling problem where the Signet of Domain granted far more single target DPS for rifle than was intended due to combining multiplicatively with the rifle's grenade budget. So essentially your single target damage was getting buffed with an AoE buff and it shouldn't have been. Special ability Essence Grenade now does non-AoE damage to the primary target and AoE damage to secondary targets. Weapon Auxiliary Loader now increases number of grenades loaded per minute by 3. Interesting. Passive Backup Plan replaced by Combat Readiness. While you have an uncooked grenade loaded, your assault rifle basic abilities do 20% more healing and damage. This increases multiplicative with other effects. Passive Emergency Loader, renamed to Overclocked Loader, now increases number of grenades loaded per minute by 1.2 regardless of the user's health. Interesting. Passive Autoloader now has a 40% chance to make the next probability loaded grenade. Oh, Blade! Blade! Okay. Preface. This update is making some significant changes to Blade. This is not a DPS or damage dealer balance pass, but a pass to address a potential self-healing problem by using Blade as a tanking offhand. The original design of Blade intended for it to be a viable taking offhand, but did not fully accomplish this primarily due to lacking proper threat generation. The redesign of tanks has pushed them away from self-healing, which means that Blade and its numerous healing effects is no longer an appropriate pairing for tanks. A wide number of changes were made during this pass, some directly addressing the above concerns, some for quality of life, and some because they were quick and easy to get in while making the aforementioned changes. So basically, Blade was intended for tanks when they were intended to self-heal. It never really worked well, and tanks are no longer intended to self-heal, so a bunch of his shit wasn't working properly. Mechanic Spirit Blade. On reaching 5 chi, Spirit Blade now automatically forges with a duration of 5 attacks. If your Spirit Blade is already forged, 5 attacks are added to it. The diminishing returns are gone. So it used to be when every time you reforged your blade, it was less and less and less until eventually it just breaks. Chi is no longer lost when Spirit Blade shatters. So if you have 4 chi and you shatter your Spirit Blade, well, you still have 4 chi. Basic abilities have a reduced chance to generate chi. Power, Elite, and Special abilities have an increased chance to generate chi. This fixes a scaling issue where at higher energy generation, Blade's mechanic did not scale on the same curve as other weapons like Assault Rifle or Blood Magic. The damage dealt by Spirit Blade has been adjusted to be in line with the change in Chi generation and Spirit Blade attack generation from Chi. The number of passives that interact with Spirit Blade have had a balanced passive to bring them in line with the new Spirit Blade uptime and damage. Several weapons had their balance updated for the new Spirit Blade uptime and damage. Special ability Spirit Blade. So if you recall Blade, it used to be you had to push an ability button to actually forge your blade. Now it happens automatically. So that ability has now been redesigned as Crushing Tide. 20-second cooldown, 2 blade energy costs, off the global cooldown. Can only be activated when you have at least 2 Spirit Blade attacks remaining. Empower your Spirit Blade with the destructive force of a tsunami making landfall, causing your next blade attack to shatter the Spirit Blade, dealing 2.6 CP damage for each remaining attack. So, what does this mean? It means Blade does burst damage now. You can theoretically get 10 Spirit Blade attacks stored up, right? You hit Crushing Tide, and then you attack. And your Spirit Blade shatters, but all 10 get consumed, immediately doing 10 times 2.6 CP. Like, oh, it's fucking beautiful. It's really beautiful. You basically, you stick it in and you break it off, right? It's so great. The Spirit Blade's passive has been redesigned as Second Wave. When Crushing Tide shatters your Spirit Blade, its recharge timer is reduced by 1.25 seconds for each remaining Spirit Blade attack. I wonder how that works. The way I read that is weird, because, like, okay, I guess, so, if I'm understanding this correctly, which I think I am, so you're not likely to have 10 Spirit Blade attacks, it's more likely to be 5. So, Crushing Tide is a 20-second cooldown, but if you have the passive, when you attack, you'll reduce its cooldown by like 6.25 seconds. So basically it goes down to like 13-14 seconds cooldown. Essentially you can reduce this cooldown and burst more often if you have the passive. You can burst more often. That's like the short version. Swallow Cut now benefits from agents that increase power ability damage. Fix an incorrect interaction that triggered Immortal Spirit too frequently. Passive, Immortal Spirit can no longer be purged. So they made it so like every weapon's primary, like first passive that's a healing one can't be purged anymore. Because there's too much things in like Dark Agartha and like Tank Commander that like purged, and if all your sources of healing are purging, like it just feels like shit. Tsunami. While channeling, your movement speed is increased by 20%. I don't remember that being a thing. Is that new? I don't remember testing this. That's cool. When Tsunami is interrupted, you are now refunded unused energy. If you get off 3 hits and then are interrupted, you will be refunded 2 energy for the 2 uncompleted hits. Tsunami's back, baby! Dancing Blade Elite. Range increased to 15 meters, up from 10. Special ability Hone. The next blade attack purges 1 beneficial effect from items hits. So this is what I was saying, like basically all the weapons now get a purge. Soothing Spring. Additionally cleanses 1 detrimental effect from team members every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. This is awesome because Blade basically only healed yourself before, and now you actually have a group heal / cleanse. Or at least group cleanse. I don't know if it heals for the group. Healing is now capped at 15,000 maximum health. I don't know if it heals everyone. Definitely cleanses everyone. Dev commentary. Blade as a weapon did not have much in the way of team utility, making it the perfect place to add additional team-wide cleansing as an alternative to cleanup. Yeah, love this. Love this. Passive clairvoyance. Healing is now capped at 15k maximum health. Passive focus breathing generates 1 chi every 10 seconds. Passive warrior spirit. Damage increase. Master's chain talisman redesigned. When you reach 5 chi, your next blade attack deals 1.25 CP additional damage. That's nice. I like that. Stormbringer now generates 2 chi entering combat and 1 chi every 4 seconds afterward. Shattered Hellblade. When your Spirit Blade shatters, deal 4.5 CP damage to nearby enemies. Rhythmic Blade. While your Spirit Blade is forged, you generate an additional Spirit Blade attack every 4 seconds. This is what I've been using when testing. I think this one is good as well, potentially. Stormbringer. But just because Crushing Tide does its damage off of Spirit Blade attacks, I think this felt really good to me. I think this might be like a new meta blade, personally. But we'll see. I have one already. Like I'm kind of betting on this. I like how it felt anyways. It felt really good to play with Rhythmic Blade. Magic Blade redesigned. Whenever your Spirit Blade shatters, recite a mantra for 3 seconds that increases your chance to generate chi by 30% for 30 seconds. Now, the Soviet Tech Sword used to like auto forge your blade, but since that's not a thing anymore, it had to be completely redesigned. Whenever you hit with a blade ability, you deal 0.25 CP extra damage. Whenever you hit with a non-blade ability, you have a 28% chance to generate 1 chi. The Tech Sword belongs to a set of weapons designed to function as offhands. However, it gained popularity as a main hand weapon, so its redesigned form aims to fit both roles, although it is most effective as an offhand. Yeah, so it does extra damage for you instead of like forging auto forging your blade, because that's not necessary anymore. But if it's your offhand, it's going to be generating chi whenever you're using your main hand, which makes it a good offhand. Blade of the Bloody Silk redesigned. The cooldown of Crushing Tide is reduced by 4 seconds. Well, that's interesting. Just straight up like, hey, crush them more often. Razor's Edge. Chance to generate chi increased to 50% on crit. Interesting. Blood Magic. Blood Magic got changed a shit ton. Corruption mechanic. Self-damage reduced by 60%. No longer reduces healing received. So you stop killing yourself. Damage limits for being at high corruption reduced. Damage of the caster when above 90 corruption increased. Damage bonus for being at high corruption reduced. Damage dealt to the caster when above 90 corruption increased. Corruption deals gradually increasing damage the longer the caster stays above 90 corruption. This can be seen through the buff Tainted Blood in the player's buff tray. Activating blood abilities while your corruption is below 90 will remove stacks of Tainted Blood. Tainted Blood is removed when you leave combat. Yeah, it's not just nerfed. So like the damage, the self-damage has been reduced a lot, but if you're at really high corruption, it still is going to hurt you through a new buff. And if you get below 90 and activate blood abilities, you can remove stacks of the buff, or the debuff. Martyrdom. Self-damage reduced by 60%. No longer reduces healing received. Bonus to healing done. Rebalance. All I care about is the juicy bonuses. Passive Absolution redesigned. Now heals for 2.5% of maximum health every time your corruption or martyrdom attempts to damage you up to 375. Ability Mend. While 51% plus healing and allocation generates 1 extra martyrdom per cast. No longer deals martyrdom damage when cast with an animal well. Sanctuary. No longer tries to cast a barrier as its primary objective. Now immediately does healing. Overhealing is turned into a barrier. Overhealing increases the strength of the target's active area up to a set limit that scales with the caster's heal power, crit chance, crit power, and martyrdom. Healing increased by 300% when used to heal the caster. Passive Restored Reward. Renamed to a word I cannot pronounce. Hematopoiesis? Maybe? And redesigned. When Sanctuary is cast on a target with less than 50% health, Sanctuary both heals and applies its barrier for the same amount. You can only affect a specific target this way every 15 seconds. Redemption. Cooldown reduced to 12 seconds. Now off the global cooldown. Now consumes all martyrdom to apply additional healing scaled based on how much martyrdom is consumed. Passive Mercy Resigned. Increases Redemption's healing by 47%. After casting Redemption for 3 seconds, all your blood magic abilities behave as though you have at least 61 martyrdom. Wow. Seems interesting. Communion Elite now cleanses one effect on the first and the final tick. Desecrate. Purges. See? Blood gotta purge. Purges one beneficial effect from the target. Soothe. Passive. Increase HP threshold at convalescence will apply its varied 50% and healing from all sources now increase 20%. Rejuvenate. Replaced by Expunge Blight. Oh, this is it! This is it! 40-second cooldown. Cost 2 blood energy off the global cooldown. Summons a Flesh Monstrosity from the defensive target. The health of the Flesh Monstrosity scales with the caster's healing power and martyrdom. The Flesh Monstrosity absorbs 50% of incoming damage against the defensive target and 20% of incoming damage against the rest of the defensive target's team. The Flesh Monstrosity will expire after 8 seconds or whenever it has absorbed enough damage that it dies. Passive Resurgence replaced by Antibody. Increases the health of Expunge Blight's Flesh Monstrosity and increases the amount of damage it absorbs to 65% of incoming damage against the defensive target and 30% of incoming damage against the rest of the defensive target's team. As long as the Flesh Monstrosity stays alive, it will cleanse one detrimental effect from all team members every 2 seconds. You get a Blood Buddy that soaks damage for both the tank and the DPS that are taking damage potentially, and it can cleanse people. Why would you not have a Flesh Monstrosity buddy? Well, why would you not do that? You gotta have them. Come on. All right. Chaos Magic. Wow. Weapon mechanics. Removed enigmas. The design of enigmas aimed to accomplish 2 things: provide some amount of mitigation and survivability for chaos tanks, provide interesting play with a layer of observing and timing purges. Unfortunately, did not satisfactorily meet either of these goals. The mitigation was too inconsistent, and we saw very few players engage in the purge layer of gameplay. Most preferred to slot Resonance Cascade and forget that enigmas existed. A Garth SWL fan, thanks for the follow. I like the name. Additionally, players who ignored this mechanic created a penalty for team members who here has been one-shot by Reciprocity Enigma in the New York raid. I've been one-shot by Reciprocity Enigma in the New York raid. This caused chaos to feel bad when you reached 8 paradoxes and didn't see anything happen 1/3 of the time. To improve the feel of playing chaos and open up an alternate avenue to provide more consistent mitigation of chaos tanks, it was decided to remove this aspect of the chaos toolset. So enigmas are no more. Paradoxes. When you reach 8 paradoxes, you now have a 50-50 chance to get singularities or doppelgangers. Slightly reduced damage of doppelgangers and singularities. Adjusted the chance to generate paradoxes. Power special and abilities have an increased chance to generate paradoxes. Basic abilities now have a reduced chance to generate paradoxes. This change is needed to fix chaos damage not scaling properly with increased energy generation. New baseline mechanic. This is important. Ages of Parallelism. So this is like on all the time. It's essentially like a permanent passive. It's just of having chaos equipped. While having a chaos focus equipped, 20% of incoming damage is delayed and instead received over 6 seconds. So it's spread out. Not all of it. 20% of the damage that you're about to take is delayed over the next 6 seconds. The total amount of damage taken is unchanged, but the time frame in which it is taken is spread out. On leaving combat, if the remaining delayed damage from Agents of Parallelism will not be fatal, it is immediately dealt in a single chunk. This is done to improve soloing so that chaos users are not prevented from naturally regenerating health for an extended period of time. Several tanking-oriented passives and abilities have been updated to interact with and improve Aegis of Parallelism. This mechanic smooths out the damage spikes that evade tanks so frequently encounter, which gives the healer time to react and keep the tank alive instead of getting 2-shot or having to retry the encounter an absurd number of times in the hope of getting lucky. Basically, it makes evade tanking like more consistent because you won't get one shot. You can spread the damage out. Also, a bunch of the abilities can, I think, increase the amount of damage delayed, or like make part of that 20% just like go away and never happen. Things like that. Chaos damage now benefits from agents that increase damage against specific types of targets, and the Cernos Antler Fragment. Okay. Passive Resonance Cascade no longer affects enigmas. This effect was considered a freebie and was not part of this passive balancing. Still has an 18.5% chance to generate a paradox every second while in combat. Will no longer randomly continue to generate paradoxes while out of combat. Passive Body Double. With the change of paradoxes, this passive needed to be rebudgeted for the higher frequency of doppelgangers. Increases damage of doppelgangers by 50%. Damage increase is now applied to base damage. Interesting. Passive Eye of the Runestorm. With the change to paradoxes, this passive need to be budgeted for the higher frequency of singularities. Damage decreased by approximately 14%. Signature Twist Fate redesign. Signature ability, only one signature ability may be used at a time. 3 energy cost, 30-second cooldown. Twist Fate deals point blank AoE damage in a 10-meter radius and applies a damage over time effect lasting 12 seconds. Clears 65% of damage currently delayed by Aegis of Parallelism. So of the 20% that has been delayed, you will wipe 65% of that. Evading attacks and reaching 8 paradoxes reduces the remaining cooldown on Twist Fate. Scales with tank allocation and evade rating defense rating. Passive Backlash replaced by Out of Phase. Twist Fate applies debilitated and for 6 seconds increases your evaded chance by 10%, the amount of damage delayed by Aegis of Parallelism by 25%. Wait, it increases its amount by 25%? Or up to 20%. So does this go to 25 or does this go to 45? If it's by, that's pretty large. It's now that would be now would be like, it depends if it's adding on top of it's or if it's changing the value. I'm actually not really clear on this. Rewind, replaced by Invoke Self. Summons 2 extra-dimensional defenders with 20% of your maximum health who intercept 80% of incoming damage. The defenders last up to 7 seconds. Passive Flashbacks are replaced by Displacement. Invoke Self summons 1 additional extra-dimensional defender and cleanses 3 debuffs. Additionally, all extra-dimensional defenders last 3 seconds longer. So you could get 3 copies of yourself that last 10 seconds that are soaking damage for you. Flame 6, thanks for the raid! Almost makes Shoddy Chaos decent. Oh, it does make them decent. Like, for sure. Hold on. Where was that thing? Yeah, I'm reading all the patch notes, Uni. Did I miss one? I missed one. It's 9,000 plus words. 9,000 plus words. Don't let me interrupt you too much. I see you just from those patch notes. Yeah. No, no worries, Flame. I missed one more. Telemental? No, I got them, didn't I? Oh, you're right. I did miss Telemental. There we go. Good lord. He's reading every single word. Jimmy, you guys were right about the radio silence patch in 3 days thing. Yeah, we know what we're talking about. We okay, okay. Yeah, so honestly, where was it? Where was it? Razim. Yeah, shoddy. I think actually shoddy tanking is now, if I'm not mistaken, like the best tanking for New York Raid. Like specifically, like E17 New York Raid, you want shotgun tanks. I think, from what I remember from the betas. It's been a long while. I'm Litwick. Hi. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean anything. I have a goldfish memory. And I'm drinking. But yeah, Chaos. Beekeepers, cool. Chaos is really good now for tanking. It's more consistent. It's fun. And shotgun is like the go-to for. Shotgun is now the go-to, I think, for the raid tanking. One of the old big tanks. I almost read that backwards. Big old tanks. Which sounds funnier for some reason. What does OD rebalance loot table mean? It means exactly what it says. They rebalance the loot table. They're not super forthcoming when it comes to stuff like that. It just means the loot table's been rebalanced for the elite level tiers. Because the elite tiers have been rebalanced. And in general, it means higher distillates are available. So like, for example, I think right now the max distillate you get like in E10 dungeon is like 4k. Like a 4k purple distillate or maybe 4.4k, something like that. Further his plans to remove signet distillates from OD. I don't remember what happened there. I honestly don't know if that's true or not. I don't remember. I wasn't testing OD much, to be honest. Psychic, trying SWL after I played a Secret World years ago. What weapon combos should I start with? Probably solo player for most of the game. I mean, anything will work for the story. Like, if you just want to play through the story, which is completely free, and you're not super concerned about like end game stuff, literally any combination will work. The only thing I would advise against probably is double healer weapons. Like, some people will go assault rifle fist, which is fine, but heal weapons don't have hit rating passives in their passive tree. So you end up glancing more than you would if you had a different weapon that had hit rating in its passive tree. Which is an easy fix. If you really want assault rifle fist, you just have to make sure you unlock a third weapon pretty quickly and get its hit rating passive so you're not glancing all the damn time. But that's a little extra work, and so, you know, you might not want to do that. You might not want to go double healing weapons. I personally really liked Sword Elemental. Endgame in mind, what for DPS? Probably like, I think Hammer main is now might be like the best DPS, and then assault rifle is still good. Assault rifle, so that gives you range. It's like as your main weapon, right? I wouldn't go like fist offhand necessarily. I don't think. But assault rifle main is good DPS. Hammer main is good DPS. Sword is a lot better now. It actually should be pretty close. I don't know if it's gonna be close to hammer. It's gonna be good. It's a melee weapon with burst damage now. It was a melee weapon basically without burst damage before. Hammer Chaos is the main tank build right now on live. I don't think it will be on Tuesday. For one thing, felt like, at least from the beta, you could like, you really don't always need a second tanking weapon. Like, you could pick a different weapon. Like, I saw tanks that were like Hammer Ellie or Chaos something. Like, you can pick a different weapon offhand and do weird shit. Like, there was tanks like flickering around. Shoddy is definitely an actual option now, and like I said, I believe for the raid at least, I'm pretty sure Shoddy main is like the thing. I think the raid meta, like E7, there's a new tier for the raid, E17 tier for the raid. I believe the meta for that is actually Shotgun Chaos. But as far as the story, play whatever you want, weapon-wise. By the time you finish the story, you generally would have gear like in the blue or purple range, so you're like nowhere near endgame anyways. You can do an about face on your weapons, and it's not a big time sink, honestly. I love sword. I'm glad sword's coming back. I plan to swap back to sword when the shit goes live and just try and stay sword again. I've been pistol because I've been pistol for the raid, because sword was just absolute garbage in the raid. And I, have a raiding cabal, so that was like not acceptable. I couldn't do that. But now it looks like I can provide the same utility. I can cleanse people in the raid. I'm cleansing with pistol now. I can cleanse with sword now once it goes live on Tuesday. And I'll have burst damage, so I'll actually be doing damage. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Anyways, back to the notes. Let's see. Immutable is been massively redesigned. Increases damage delayed by agents of parallelism by 30% and reduces delayed damage by 80%. So it gets rid of a lot of damage. So I think it's like half the damage, half your incoming damage is reduced by 80%. To compensate for not dealing any damage and thus not generating any threat, Immutable provides a multiplicative 20% more threat generation while active. So when you activate it, then you hit someone, you do a shit ton more threat, right? I believe that's how that works. Its passive says, when Immutable ends, clear 35% damage currently delayed by Agent of Parallelism and become immune to damage delayed by Agent of Parallelism for 2 seconds. So, get rid of a bunch of damage that you were going to take, and then don't take any of the damage you were going to take for 2 seconds. Anomaly Elite evade chance is now increased by 10% while channeling. Passive is replaced by X Factor. Turns Anomaly into a Tank Elite, 60-second cooldown. Increases evade chance while channeling and for 5 seconds after by 40%. Applies debilitated and increases damage of Anomaly. When the evade chance buff expires, all living enemies damaged by Anomaly miss their next attack made within 5 seconds. That's a crazy like chain of evade stuff. Like, holy shit. Special ability Entropy. The next chaos attack purges one beneficial effect from all enemies hit and longer purges on every chaos attack when is active. So purge. Passive, Regain Ripples in Reality. Winds of Change increases the chance that damaged enemies will have their attacks evaded by 3% for 5 seconds. Passive, Aegis of Parallelism replaced by Multidimensional Threads. Increase the amount of damage delayed by Aegis of Parallelism by 15% and reduce delayed damage by 11%. So basically, delay more damage and reduce that damage. Passive, Long-Term Chaos, Redesign, extends the duration of Aegis of Parallelism by 30 seconds. And reduces delay damage by 6%. Increases health of extra dimension defenders by 50%. Holy shit. You can make your copies like way stronger. Passive Veil Deformity Redesign. Distortion now increases the caster maximum health by 30% for 15 seconds. Probability Protection Redesign. When you have the cast ability, if you were hit since the last time you attacked, gain 2.5% evade chance stacking. Stacks persist until you evade an attack or leave combat. Wow. So you just beat the shit out of them and like be like, yes, I'm going to evade your next attack. Special ability, Tumultuous Whisper. The damage this ability now has variance, meaning it won't always hit for the same exact number. It will still always hit for a multiple of 8. Instead of faking crits, critical chance critical power now proportionally increase damage done. This ability still cannot critically hit, but directly benefits from these stats. Chaos tanking looks so much better. Yeah, no. Tanking across the board looks way better and way more even. Like, everything is now... what's the, like... I'm not... Words are not working. Everything is now more viable. Everything, like, basically all tanking weapons are viable options now. There's still going to be certain areas where one might excel more than another, like I mentioned the raid, but just in general, they're all actually good at what they're doing. Fiction issue where very high critical chance rating, critical power rating would result in lower total damage from Tumultuous Whisper. Passive can now occur every 3 seconds for Paradox Restoration. Weapon, Sanity's Affiliate redesign. You have a chance to summon one extra dimension defender when damaged. The chance is higher the fewer paradoxes you have. That's interesting. Weapon, Incalculable Abacus redesign. Whenever you evade, generate 1 to 2 paradoxes. Weapon that causes effects now grants 4.5% evade instead of protection. Oh, that's cool. You get more evade. Weapon, Focus on Ring Talisman, now reduces damage taken instead of giving protection. Weapon, a regularly Architect, updated the chance to get singularities. Weapon, Enigmatic Apparatus redesign, increased the amount of damage delayed by Aegis Paralysm by 5%. When reaching 8 paradoxes, you become immune to delayed damage for 2 seconds. This effect is a 9-second cooldown. Talisman, Tumultuous Assassin, now always gives 1 paradox. That's expected though. I'm just glad that they actually made tanking look fun again. It really does. It really does. I concur. Elementalism. Preface. At high energy generation, Elementalism is able to get stuck in a state where it is locked out and its cold ability is already on cooldown. This is not an intended nor desirable state and feels rather punishing. To address this heat lock, non-elite heat-reducing abilities are being made more readily available. Additionally, changes were made to address ongoing balance and utility problems in solo versus group encounters. Mechanic Thermotics. Damage thresholds updated. 76 to 100 heat, 67.6% damage, 51 to 75, 33.8, 26 to 50, 16.9. If I recall, this is almost double what it is now. Like, Ellie's damage thresholds for the actual mechanic got buffed significantly. Special ability Flash Freeze. Cooldown is reset when you overheat. This is what they were talking about in this first part here. Is that if you overheat and you had already used Flash Freeze and it's on cooldown, you overheat, Flash Freeze comes off cooldown immediately so that you can, cool yourself off immediately and not be stuck like that. If you have a hostile target within 20 meters, Flash Freeze will cast both at your feet and at the target. So it's not just a localized snare. It's now a ranged cast as well. Flash Freeze snares targets it hits for 6 seconds. Damage is now calculated before the caster's heat is reduced. Oh, that's cool. So you get the damage of being like potentially max heat before you cool down. With cold abilities requiring close proximity to deal damage, using them was too risky in a group setting. This change should provide a lower risk long range cooling option while also keeping a snare effect in Elementalism Toolkit. This is important because Crystallized Flame no longer snares. That ability has changed completely, so it was important that you still had a snare option in Ellie. Special ability Flicker. Cooldown is reset when you overheat, but casting Flicker while overheated prevents you from immediately recasting it. I believe this is because if you double Flicker, the first time you flicker, your heat goes down, and when you flicker a second time, your heat goes up. So you can't... So if you were overheated, you can't go down in heat and then back up, right? It just prevents you from doing that. Special ability Crystallized Frost. Cooldown reduced to 12 seconds. Dev commentary. Crystallized Frost is oriented more at keeping heat under control than rapidly burning it off. It was designed that it was better to give at a higher overall uptime than to tie it to overheating. So that playstyles that like to hover at high heat but not overheat have a supporting ability. Special ability Crystallized Storm. When cast, if the caster has 30 or more heat, purges the area. After 5 seconds, if the caster has 30 or more heat, purges the area again. No longer purges on hit. So it's just it can be like a constant purge. And again, in E14 and up dungeons, purging is very necessary from all sources. Passive Discharge. Damage proc now triggers 100% of the time when Crystallized Storm purges, and when it hits an enemy with purgeable buffs. It does a 33% chance to trigger against an enemy without a purgeable. Okay. Here we go. Here's the big one. Special ability Crystallized Flame. Replaced with Living Flame. Summons Living Flame at the target location, which immediately casts Flame Flare. The Living Flame inherits your combat stats and thermoptic heat. Its health scales with your attack power and attacks every 1.5 seconds. Casting Crystallized Flame while you have the Living Flame active. Well, I guess it shouldn't. That should have been reworded. It should be casting Living Flame while you have Living Flame active, right? Because it's been renamed. But I get what they're trying to do there. Active teleports Living Flame to your target location and makes it immediately cast Flame Flare. So basically, whenever it shows up somewhere, it casts Flame Flare, right? Flame Flare deals damage in a 5-meter radius around Living Flame and stuns hit targets for 3 seconds. So it's a stun, which should be an interrupt. That's cool. Dev commentary. Elementalism had an unfortunate spreadability problem in solo content, particularly Dark Agartha. Additionally, there was a known client crash caused by Crystallized Flame that we were unable to reproduce internally, and all prior attempts to fix it were unsuccessful. The decision was made to tackle both these problems simultaneously while also giving Elementalism something unique and fleshing out its flavor, while also removing a source of visual ground clutter. No more crashing from Crystallized Flame because it doesn't fucking exist. You have Living Flame inside now. Passive Crystallized Blaze replaced with Synergetic Flames. Increases the damage dealt by the Living Flame pet. While you have a Living Flame pet active, the cast time of Living Flame is reduced by 1 second to instant. So you can like recast instantly as opposed to having a cast time of a second. With the passive, Living Flame will provoke enemies who attack you. This effect does not work against dungeon, lair, or raid monsters. Your elemental fire and lightning damage heal your Living Flame pet for 35% of the damage done. Now, just for reference, I did Tank Commander in the beta as Sword Ellie with Living Flame, and it was fucking great. Because you cast Living Flame, right? Tank Commander attacks you. Living Flame goes, fuck you, provokes Tank Commander. Now Tank Commander's attacking the Living Flame while I'm attacking him. And if you cast any other fire or lightning damage, you heal your pet that's being attacked by Tank Commander. Like, again, it doesn't work in dungeon. The provoke part doesn't work in dungeon, lair, or raid because that would cause all kinds of problems. But this whole thing is really fucking cool. And it's also the reason that pets are now summonable in dungeons, because technically the Living Flame is a pet. So you can now have your pets in dungeons, essentially because of this ability. Also, the Living Flame really is a pet. Like, he doesn't go away when combat ends. If he's still around, he'll just follow you around. He'll follow you around Agartha. Like, he doesn't go away. Unless you, I think, unequip your weapon or, like, the ability. Alright, passive Cauterize. Increase healing up to 4% up from 2%. Passive Thermocoupler. This passive now functions as described, allowing weaving back forth between fire and lightning abilities. Damage has been updated for the frequency of its damage trigger, average damage, with the course of the fight unchanged. Maybe the pet will cause crashes? I didn't see any crashes caused by the pet. And I tested it a bunch. It doesn't have the same animation when it's cast. And the flame animation cast was doing a bunch of weird shit under the hood, apparently. Like the decal it put down when you cast it, right? It's not the same thing. They would be dumb to like be like, oh, that ability is broken, let's reuse the same thing for Living Flame. No, it has a different effect when it's cast. Weapon! Crowd Charge Conduit no longer triggers off of a flicker cast that increases your heat. Frozen Flickering no longer triggers off a flicker cast that increases your heat. So it would only trigger off of the one that cools you down. Voltaic Shunt. There's now an FX when the effect is active, and increase its duration from 5 seconds to 8 seconds. Alright, here's another big one. You guys ready for this one? Orochi Thermal Inverter. Redesigned and renamed to an Orochi Thermal Capacitor. Completely different weapon. Your elemental damage is calculated as though you have 100 heat. This effect lasts for 3.5 seconds after dealing elemental damage. After this effect ends, it will automatically return after 25 seconds. There's an FXQ visible on the player during combat while the damage increase is active. This weapon was released without a balance pass. They're talking about the original thermal inverter weapon, by the way, not the new one. As a result, it overperformed by such a wide margin it was not feasible to leave it in its original unbalanced form. The redesigned form attempts to adhere to the original intent of the weapon and retain its usefulness and utility as an offhand weapon. So before, it straight up inverting the damage, apparently, and this is from talking on the closed beta server stuff, apparently what happened was they went, this is a cool idea, let's just flip the mechanic, and no one actually tested what that does. Like, they didn't check it. They just like, oh, this is a neat idea, let's just flip the thing and release it. Should be fine. So it just wasn't, it was never actually balanced past at all. It was just like, that's a cool idea, let's do it. And yeah, it was way overbalanced. And yeah, that is an understatement. So now it does give you like the same effect, right? The inverter basically said whenever you cast a weapon, whenever you cast a Ellie ability, you would start at max damage. That's what the inverter did for you. You would start at max damage, right? That's essentially what happened. So what this is saying is still true. You will start at max damage, right? But the effect only lasts 3.5 seconds, and then 25 seconds later, you will get that effects symbol on you again that lets you know, like, oh, if I cast an Ellie ability right now, it'll be as if I have 100 heat. So effectively, you're getting the same effect as what the thermal inverter was giving you, just for as not as long of a length of time, and also not consistently, like more intermittently, right? It's still good, by the way. This weapon I think is still good. I remember using it in the beta, and I think it was fine. Like, every 25 seconds, you do get to do 3.5 seconds of max damage. So as an offhand, it's still a good weapon, it's just not hella broken. Weapon, Totemic Hellord, fix the debuff from this weapon, sometimes not properly applying to hit enemies. Okay, so just straight up fix. Alright, fist weapons. Basic ability, Nurture. The heal over time now stacks up to 6 times. Each target healed by Nurture receives 1 stack. Selected the lowest percent target is the same as your target, then they receive 2 stacks. Casting Nurture onto a target who has the heal over time fully stacked now provides a refresh compensation heal amount similar to the way that dots work, damage over time work. When multiple casters use Nurture, each caster will now get their own instance of the stacking heal over time. If the caster is 51% plus any animal allocation, Nurture generates an extra 2 Fury. Yeah, still good, but not broken. I concur. So the basic ability, because your basic abilities can go to split heals between your defensive target and randomly who's the lowest person. So it'll give like 1 stack and 1 stack. But if your selected lowest person target is the same as your target, they would just receive 2 stacks. If they're fully stacked, they get a refresh compensation heal amount. And multiple casters get their own stacks. Interesting. Power ability renewal. Healing increased by 300% when used to heal the caster. So basically when healers heal themselves, they each get a massive boost. Anyone tested how this affects the AR LE setup? Yeah, there was a lot of... there was 3 open beta weekends. There was a lot of testing of AR and offhand stuff. The biggest thing is I think Living Flame is not like a straight up... Like, it's really good like in Dark Agartha and stuff like that, honestly. But for like dungeon DPS, I think Living Flame is not great. I think you would want to do like Mjolnir's. And then like with the inverter that's now like the coupler, right? You would just, in that 3.5 seconds, you just spam your Mjolnir's. And then when your buff is back up, spam your Mjolnir's again. I'm pretty sure. Something like that. Passive recuperate no longer triggers itself. That's probably a good thing. Feral regrowth now affects the entire team. Interesting. Outgrowth replaced by overgrowth. Increase the duration of feral regrowth over time by 2 seconds. Special ability Invigorating Wrath. Revitalize is now a defensive target heal. Invigorate no longer has a cooldown. Heals the team and increases healing received by all team members by 8% for 4 seconds. Interesting. Elite. Primal Instinct. Bonus heal over time. Effects increased to 250%. Holy shit. I don't know what it was before, but that just seems like a big number. Passive Natural Remedy. When equipped, regeneration properly obeys variance, meaning the healing it does can be plus minus 5% of the displayed value. No longer causes regeneration to not benefit from effects that increase the potency of elite abilities. The overhealing that is redistributed to the lowest health team members no longer incorrectly buffed the second time by global healing modifiers. Wow, I had some weird bugs. Special Ferocity. When used to consume fist damage over time from a hostile target, additionally purges 1 beneficial effect. When used to confirm fist times from a friendly target, additionally cleanses 2 detrimental effects. Oh, that's interesting. So you can both purge or cleanse with Ferocity. Vigor can no longer be purged. The buff is now visible. Bladed Gauntlets now generate the intended amount of fury. Holy shit! They fixed Bladed Gauntlets. I thought that was never gonna happen. Weapon, Fist in Chains. Now interacts properly with Serenity. Reduce the guaranteed amount of fury generated for leaving Wrath. Alright. We're going to read Hammer. Give me a second. Thick Skin has been replaced with Blazing Fury. It is a signature ability. These are new ability types for tanks. 3 energy costs, 3 cooldown. The Blazing Fury deals point-blank AoE damage in a 10-meter radius and applies a damage over time effect lasting 12 seconds. Increases max health. Grants temporary health. And increases healing received for 6 seconds. Taking damage, successfully mitigating damage, and enraging. All reduce the remaining cooldown of Blazing Fury. Scales with tank allocation and evade rating, defense rating. So again, really great if you're tanking. Because it lets you kind of like AoE pull things, because you're going to hit everything, right? Your gen threat, pull everything. It increases your health. You get temporary health, increases your healing received, because you have healers now, so that's important. And also, you can make its cooldown be even lower just by getting hit, or mitigating, or enraging. But if you are scaled into damage, like if you're a tank and your tank gear scaled into like 100% damage allocation, doing something like, not 100, let's say 90% damage allocation, doing Dark Agartha or something, then this will scale its damage based on your evade rating, defense rating, and it does a fuck ton of damage when that happens. Hammer, passive, rock hard. Blazing Fury applies debilitated. While Blazing Fury is active, gain 8,200 protection. Pain suppression now triggers off lanced hits. Finally. This ability now interacts with increased healing received buffs and debuffs at a 35% ratio. Passive ability, no pain, no gain, redesign. When pain suppression ends, grants 18,800 protection for 3 to 7 seconds based on how many attacks were suffered while pain suppression was active. Increases healing received by 25% while pain suppression or no pain, no gain are active. Wow. Passive Juggernaut redesign turns Unstoppable Force into a tank elite, 6 cooldown. Removes energy cost from Unstoppable Force, and while it is active, you take 50% less damage and receive 20% more healing. Wow, that is really cool. Elite Raging Volcano, reduce CD to 50 seconds. Radius increased to 10 meters. Damage reduction removed. Now grants a large amount of temporary health while channeling. When healed while channeling Raging Volcano, you heal again for 85% of the healing received. What? It's like you get like a double heal? The forced attack component now behaves like other taunts, giving the tank enough hate the target should continue to attack the tank after the forced attack debuff ends. That's nice. Passive Multiple Armor redesign. Now causes Raging Volcano's defensive effect to persist for 4 seconds after you stop channeling Raging Volcano. Oh, they took away the chunks thing. It used to have armored chunks. I like the just like the wording of the armored chunks it used to have. The original redesign, it had chunks. Now it doesn't have chunks. Pulverize. When applying the maximum health buff, the caster's health percentage now remains unchanged. If you're at 75% HP and gain the max HP boost from Pulverize, you'll gain enough current HP to stay at 75% HP. Oh, interesting. Weird. Okay. Percussive Maintenance redesign. When you refresh the duration of Pulverize health buff, receive 20% more healing for 5 seconds. Enter the fray. Taunt component now requires the caster to have 51%. Ruben, thanks for the follow. Alright, so Enter the Fray now is only a taunt if you're actually a tank. If you're past 51% tank allocation. If you're not a tank, you won't accidentally taunt shit by using it. So DPS can use it. That's good. Passive Animosity. The buff is now visible and lasts 10 seconds. Passive Unbridled Wrath now increases Pulverize maximum health buff to 45%. Bullheaded. In addition to existing functionality, when you receive an attack that deals more than 7% of your maximum health, you gain plus 10% healing received for 4 seconds. This passive now requires a hammer. Oh yeah, some of these passives didn't actually require you to have the weapon, because Bristling Rage, for example, you did not have to have the weapon. In addition to existing functionality, hitting an enemy with a hammer power ability who was damaged with Bristling Rage has a 30% chance to give you 2,045 protection for 5 seconds. This passive now requires a hammer and no longer damages targets that have not already attacked. Hey, way too bad. This would have like totally jacked up my pacifist run. I abused the shit out of Bristling Rage my pacifist run. My pacifist run would not work now. But that's fine. It was never like an intended thing. What allocation is reasonable for tanks after patch other than 51% plus? Well, 51%, all it's saying is like you basically have to be a tank. So over 50% tank now generates tank effects. You're probably going to be like 100% tank. Because here's the thing. The reason that you are like on live, like you might go like 80% tank or 75% tank, is because you needed the DPS to keep aggro. But now your tank allocation, when you drag it all the way to 100%, increases your threat generation. That's where your threat generation comes from. So the more you're allocated to tank, the higher your threat generation. So it doesn't matter what damage you're doing, it just matters that you're hitting with a super high threat generation. Passive, Die Hard. Effect increased to 30,000 protection, and also increases healing received by 60%. Rage cost is now 8 per second, doubling every 2 seconds, and it ensures you have at least 25 rage when it triggers. Die Hard now has a 6% cooldown and requires a hammer. Updated the tooltip to indicate that this is This is removed when the player is healed above 50% health. Tooltip only fix. Interesting. Poison Fire. Now triggers when you generate rage from attacking while below 75% health. Can no longer be purged. Nice. Weapon, Torture's Instrument, now gives these passive Juggernaut, Rock Hard, Die Hard. Manticore Riot Suppressor, redesigned. While protected by Enter the Fray, Blazing Fury, Raging Volcano, Juggernaut, or Die Hard, you generate 2 rage every time you are hit, and 1 stack of Fortifying every second. On reaching 20 stacks, Fortifying is removed and protection is increased for 22,505 seconds. That is interesting. Oh look, Pistol got a little bit of cute stuff done. Clean Slate, rebudgeted for updated solo expectations. Passive, rebudgeted for updated solo expectations. Actually, from what I understand, this is more. Like, it was actually underbalanced or something, which I always thought was really good. But apparently it should have been doing more. This is a big one though. Bamboozle, the passive for Trickshot. Now it causes Trickshot to purge 1 beneficial effect from hit targets. So, you know, Pistol gets a purge now, because that's important. Things should, like, every weapon needs a purge because of the new dungeon mechanics in E14+. But, this is the big part. Damaging effects now work against enemies who are immune to crowd control, and multiple players using Bamboozle will no longer overwrite each other's damaging effects. So, from launch of the game, the Bamboozle passive was essentially worthless in dungeons. Because it triggered off of Stun, Root, and Snare, I think. And most dungeon bosses are immune. And because it didn't do its damage unless one of those things was true, it did nothing. Right? But, in talking with the developers in the closed beta, apparently, the elite was balanced for the passive to do that damage all the time. So, whenever it was designed, they just didn't bother to think about the fact that, like, dungeon stuff is immune to those effects. So now, even if they're immune, it's still going to trigger the damage. So this is a huge, like, fix for Pistol, especially because Trickshot is, like, the go-to elite. Weapon, Calamitous Inspiration. Fix this weapon's power at mythic quality. It was previously giving too little. That's interesting. I didn't even know this. Okay. Alright, we're going to get into shotgun. Shells. Mechanic. Shotgun basic abilities now always offer the option to reload the previously loaded shell type. Yes! Yes! 1,000 times yes! You know, often playing my shotgun, I'm smashing the fucking basic ability, and I run out of shells and accidentally pick the shell under it, which is not the shell I wanted. I wanted the shell I'm still on. That is amazing. Anima-infused shells now heal 2% of missing health and increase received healing by 4%. Dragon Breath shells damage over time effect no longer deal damage to targets protected by a Dungeon Reflex shield. No more killing yourself with your Dragon's Breath dot. Abilities that consume all remaining shells now specified in their tooltip. They consume all shells instead of listing 6. Oh, nice. Okay. While 51% of survivability anima allocation, so if you're allocated into tank, anima infused shells and armor piercing shells give a passive threat increase. This compensates for not getting damage from the shells that would normally provide additional threat. Equipping a shotgun while at 51% survivability anima allocation, so as a tank, now gives anima infused shells. So this is important. If you're a DPS allocated, your default shell is Dragon's Breath for damage over time. If you're a tank, your default shell is the healing shell. So it will always be healing shell. And when you hit your basic, it should be healing shell, unless you, for whatever reason, changed shell types. Now that you picked the wrong one, they'll keep giving you the wrong one. I mean, I guess, but like it's kind of like shell salvage, right? Like you just like if you've picked the wrong one for shell salvage, it does the same thing. You just have to hope one of the other abilities comes up with the ability you need to reset yourself. I think that's fine. I much prefer it to be on the basic because I can't tell you how many times on my ult I'm spamming basic, and because of ability queuing, like you go through your shells and then bloop, it flips and you've already queued the basic attack. And now it just picks whatever was there. And it picks whatever was there, and now shell salvage is like, yep, that's the shell you wanted. It's like you're already stuck. You know what I'm saying? So like this is still better. This is an improvement no matter what. Special ability Glutton for Punishment has been replaced with Sonic Blast. Signature ability. Only one signature ability moves at a time. 3 energy cost, 3 second cooldown. Does not require or consume shells. Sonic Blast taunts and deals point-blank AoE damage to 10 meter radius and applies the damage over time effect within 12 seconds. Increases caster protection by 8,200 for 6 seconds. Glancing attacks and reloading the shotgun reduce the remaining cooldown of Sonic Blast. Skills with tank allocation and invader defense rating. Sonic's Blast taunt will no longer prevent taunt effects from other players from landing. Interesting. The shell requirement removal is great. It was annoying as hell. Well, you didn't even have Sonic Blast before, but yeah, the fact that this one is gone. But you might be talking about the other ability you mentioned earlier. Passive ability, Hurt Me More, is replaced by All Eyes on Me. Increases your maximum health by 30% for 60 seconds. Being glanced within 6 seconds of casting Sonic Blast grants an additional 9,000 protection for 4 seconds. Yeah, you're talking about Clean Up Crimson. I'm getting there. Reconstituting shells have been replaced by reinforced shells. 60-second cooldown, 2 shotgun energy off the GCD. Can be activated while reloading. Does not swap during reloading. Increases protection by 20,406 seconds and cleanses 1 additional effect. Dev commentary. Those who play the open beta will notice that this ability has changed from its open beta form. While the open beta form was interesting, it did not properly fill the role needed by tanks as a defensive cooldown. Okay. I don't honestly remember what this did. I played with shotgun, but I can't recall what it did in beta. But apparently it's changed from the beta. Forwarding shotgun shells has been replaced by resupply. Increases chance to be glanced by 30% while reinforced shells is active. Bombardment adjusts the way that Signature interacts with bombardment. No longer increases the number of primary targets or damage dealt to the primary targets. Increases the number of secondary targets and damage dealt to secondary targets. Okay. Passive cluster bombs replaced by supremacy. Turns bombardment into a tank elite 6-second cooldown. Removes the shell cost and requirement from bombardment. If you're a tank, it has no shell cost. While you stand in bombardment, you gain 40,000 protection and are immune to crowd control effects. While allies stand in your bombardment, they gain 7,100 protection and are immune to snare and root effects. Damage done by bombardment is also increased. Kneecapper. Glance chance is now 26.9% to 38.4%. Passive stand firm added. When you're glanced while Kneecapper's glance buff is active, you gain 29,100 protection for 5 seconds. Wow. Cleanup. Redesign. No longer consumes or requires cells. Can be activated while reloading. Does not swap during reloading. Oh, so its icon does... I didn't know what that... I didn't comprehend what that meant earlier, but... its icon doesn't swap to a shell type while reloading. That's actually really cool. So even if you're ran out of shells and you're like have a reload and all your shotgun abilities have flipped to like different shell types, cleanup won't. It just stays cleanup. So if you need to cleanse, you can cleanse even in the middle of a reload. The caster's next shotgun attack will purge 1 beneficial effect from hit targets. Now cleanses 2 detrimental effects plus 1 for every 2 unloaded shells, affecting each group member over 10 seconds. Now check this out. This is important. Cleanses 2 effects plus 1 for every 2 unloaded shells. It's actually more beneficial to cast cleanup when you're missing shells. So like, let's say you're in the reload animation, which means you have no shells loaded. That would mean +3, right? Cleanses 2 effects plus 3. So cleanses a total of 5 effects. Affecting each group member over 10 seconds. That's really cool. Cleanup checks for and cleanses detrimental effects every 0.5 seconds. Cleanup is capable of cleansing multiple detrimental effects each tick. Wow! That can cleanse like a motherfucker. Holy shit. Cleanup crew. Now triggers when cleansing life burn. Now applies the buff to all group members whenever cleanup cleanses or purges any effect. Damage increase. Damage now comes from the player that casts cleanup. Multiple players of cleanup crew no longer overwrite just cleanup crew effects. Munitions expert. While 51% survivability allocation, so while you're a tank, increases the chance to get anima-infused shells and armor-piercing shells. And armor-piercing shells apply debilitated instead of exposed. So if you're a tank, you're more apt to get healing shells and piercing shells, and the piercing shells will actually apply debilitated, which benefit you as a tank instead of exposed. Interesting. Fortifying shells also grants 4% glance chance to the caster. Reinforced rockets now increases glance chance by 1.3% for 10 seconds, stacking for 3 times. Passive control blast duration increased 10 seconds. Fix this ability not work on ally players in the area or on other shotgun players, also using control blast. Interesting. Condensed anima shells replaced by deflecting anima. When you load anima infused shells, increase your chance to be glanced by 10% for 8 seconds. That's got to be good for a tank, right? If you're always loading anima infused shells, because that's like your default basic, then every time you load your normal shell that you have by default, your glance chance, it goes up by 10% for 8 seconds. That's really cool. That's got to be a good tank passive, right? Riot Shield now provides 1,550 protection for 4 seconds after reloading your shotgun. No time to bleed has been replaced by anima coating. After being glanced 13 times, the next time you reload your shells will be coated with anima, healing you for 2% of your missing health and increasing received healing by 4%. This effect stacks with anima infused shells and triggers all effects that would activate off loading anima infused shells. Weird. Passive white phosphor shells now increases damage done by Dragon's Breath shells by 14%. The damage increase from this passive is now applied to base damage, meaning it is no longer additive with other damage increases. Okay. Weapon, Shotgun of the Howling Dog, now properly reports a chance to apply the tooltip as 100%, not 75%. This is a tooltip only fix, it already functions this way. Subject Demolisher now also increases damage done by defeating your enemy shells, throwing demise, no concedes passive, all eyes on me, mission and expert supremacy. So that's your tanking passives, I think, right? Bolstering Blaster redesign. When you're advanced, reduce the remaining cooldown of kneecap or environment if you have this permanent custom equipped by 2 seconds. Miscellaneous Ultimate Orphanum of the Awakened. The targeting circle will now be brought up while moving. You can move and cast wings. Damage now scales with the player's overall power instead of combat power. Damage increase. A maximally geared player now does about 400,000 damage with the initial blast, and the subsequent damage area hits for around 8,000 per second. Can no longer critically hit, be evaded, or glance. So you can't crit, but you can't be evaded or glanced. You're gonna do at max gear 400,000 damage. Boom! And then area effect for 8,000 per second. Holy fuck. Wings, yes. By the way, we tested this shit in the beta. And yeah, wings are a lot more impactful. Like a lot more impactful. Healing Potion. Healing amount reworked. Now heals based on your power. As your gear improves, your healing potion improves. Cooldown increased to 90 seconds. No longer increased by plus healing received and no longer generates threat. Can no longer crit. All solo survival passives now cap healing at 15,000 max HP. Basically, they don't help. It prevents tanks from overhealing, I think. Wait, why is... Did we finish? Did we finish? What is this? Oh, I didn't read the first post. I'll read the first post. That was like all the detailed patch notes. I was reading that. We'll go over the overall thing. Yeah, I read a novel already. I've only been live 2.5 hours. That's not bad. It's here! The massive dungeon raid rebalance is going live Tuesday, September 29th. This is one of the biggest updates for Secret Legends ever, which is why I said SWL 2.0. They didn't call it that. I call it that. I don't give a fuck if you like it or not. I think it's appropriate. And we sincerely appreciate all the feedback and help everyone provided during testing. If this is all new to you, hey, no worries, just keep on reading. We'll do our best to summarize the key points of the update, although you still want to wade through the colossal patch notes for full details on what to expect. There's nearly 9,000 words of changes, so, well, you might be reading it for a little while. Let's dive in. Polymorphic glyph exchangers. All characters are receiving 9 polymorphic glyph exchangers via delivered items. These will let you update your glyphs to suit your desired role. That's right, glyphs have meaning for tanks now. So nice of you to provide an audiobook with commentary to lists. So this is super important. When it goes live on Tuesday, you will receive 9 glyph exchangers, and these will let you convert any of your glyphs to any other glyph type. So if you have DPS glyphs and want to be a tank, you can convert them at their level they're at now to the other type for free. These are important and also awesome. Patron loot key changes. The loot key system is memory work. Dungeons, scenarios, and layers no longer require keys to obtain loot. That's right, you too can run dungeons all day long. Can we convert our inverter to shunt? No, your inverter gets converted to the coupler, which is still good, way too bad. One of each type of patron's chest can be opened per day by patrons. The patron's chest award 1 guaranteed specialized distillate, energized or purified, anima shards, and varying useful items like distillate shifters or catalysts, exclusive cosmetics, or even 3 new agents. Cash keys still remain in the game, and patrons continue to receive 1 cash key per day. So you get patron keys, and you can get like 1 dungeon, 1 scenario, and 1 layer as a patron per day. You can open a special chest with guaranteed loot, right? You still have chances for a lot of this kind of stuff from normal chests. I think energized and purified still come from normal. And also, interestingly enough, in these notes, I really didn't see a description of what these are. But essentially, they energize, I believe, is like +%. That particular type of distillate might give you better boost on a certain type of weapon or a certain type of talisman. And then purified, I think, is just is it more? I forget now. But it's interesting to note they didn't really is it better crit chance maybe? And then the catalysts, by the way, catalysts are things like I know one of the catalysts is like guaranteed crit. So you could put all your energized distillates that do like +% like in to upgrade your item, like 4 of them, and then a guaranteed crit catalyst, and like off to the races you go. Dungeons raid scenarios. We are capping the call defense leaderboard for the highest wave due to the myriad of systemic changes that directly influence call defense. We look forward to seeing the new highest wave that players can reach. You may now queue up to Dungeon Elite Difficulty 17. We've merged queues across several ranges. There aren't 17 separate queues. The ranges are as follows. We read this in the full patch notes, but we can go over it again. Elite 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 13, 14 to 16, 17. So what this means is now we have 7 queues instead of 10, but the dungeons go higher. Nightmare mechanics now start at E8 to 10, which if you think about it, means actually earlier. Currently, Nightmare mechanics start at E5, which means when you're playing the game, you do E1 dungeons, E2 dungeons, E3 dungeons, E4 dungeons, and then you do E5 and get Nightmare mechanics. So it's the 5th tier. But in the new system, it's actually the 4th tier that you interact with. So you'll do Elite 1 to 2, you'll level up enough to do Elite 3 to 4, 5 to 7, and then when you hit 8 to 10, you get Nightmare mechanics. So technically, you're hitting Nightmare mechanics like a 1 Q tier earlier. And additional mechanics now begin at E14, which I like to call Nightmare Plus. I don't think they've taken that name to heart, but I don't care. I will keep calling it Nightmare Plus. New achievements have been added at Elite 17. I cannot wait to see these. The penthouse has returned. Updated for SWL. This encounter is accessible at Elite 11 and higher. So, I believe... So the penthouse is an oddity because its difficulty is very different. I believe the penthouse is essentially at its Elite mechanics level from TSW on both of these tiers. And the penthouse nightmare mechanics only kick in at 17. But it's a special animal. And it's really fucking fun. I love that. I love the penthouse. Solo and duo secret reserve scenarios are available up to Elite 17. And like we read in the other patch notes, their achievements have been adjusted. I really like that. Manhattan Exclusion Zone has an Elite 17 only version with its own unique mechanics and loot. Now, I did a video on this on Skull Sessions on my YouTube channel. It's got a lot more mechanics layered on top of the E10 mechanics. There's a lot more stuff going on. It's got its own loot. It's going to be super fun. There's probably like 1 or 2 groups. Probably 1 group, really, that's going to smack it around like day 1. But, potentially. I expect Maul's group to be hitting the 17 pretty hard, pretty quickly. Because they beat it in the open betas already. But I expect for most people, getting to E17 raid and getting that down is going to be effort for sure. Like, it's fun though. Like, the mechanics are interesting. Items, item XP, and crafting. We've added several new crafting items and adjusted discount values across the board. Recovering glyphs and signets costs 4k MOF for red item. The price scales down for lower quality items. This changes are live, but for completeness, right? That's just an accident. I forget what update it went live with by accident, but this change was intended for the rebalance and already is live. Many signets, talismans, weapon affixes have received balance adjustments. We've also added a couple new signets and an entire new set of talismans. This is true. We got to see a bunch of them on the beta. Weapons and rolls. Healing and tanking have received major changes. It was one of the primary focuses of this update. Tiers have been shifted to a more tactical playstyle to make their abilities and elites feel more impactful while achieving a balance. This also includes adjusting how healing anima allocation works. You want to allocate 51% or more of your anima to healing to take advantage of the mechanics. Tanking has received an overhaul, and many tank-related abilities passive have been redesigned or outright replaced to give each tank weapon a unique flavor and focus. All bonus hate generation from abilities passive items have been removed. Instead, survivability anima allocation provides bonus threat. Additionally, all 9 weapons have received significant changes. Some weapons may even be completely different from what you're used to. Miscellaneous. We've also made some adjustments to your ultimate ability, healing potions, and total survival passives. That's the TLDR. Now here's the full update notes. Grab a comfy seat and dig in. Okay, we did that part first because I just wanted to get to the meat. But there we go. That is the rebalance. Which again, live Tuesday, 29th.